This is Trupti V Acharya and welcome to Pureka. One thing that is really surprising is the study that she did, okay? So she studied morphologies of craters and different planets.
Okay.
So like a common person like me, I would be like, okay, fine, a comet hit, it digged the hole, it made the space, and I would just forget about it. That makes them different, because they literally researched about that thing for almost 10 years. In the year 2002, she studied about planetary science at University of Toronto. In her second year, her thesis was to analyze photometric data of a variable star and a hypergiant called Rho Cassiope, a star 3,400 light years away from Earth, yet visible from naked eye. To my surprise, instead of continuing her focus on stars, Dr. Shankar delved into the study of large-scale terrestrial impact events, specifically what happens when an asteroid collides with a celestial object. This exploration extended from 2006 to 2013, where she studied crater impacts on Venus. I marveled at the vastness of this concept as she continued her fellowship on a similar theme, exploring impacts on Earth and Moon during her postdoctoral fellowship until 2016. Diving deeper into her career highlights, Dr. Shankar served as the chairperson of the board for Lotus STEM, a networking and leadership platform for South Asian women in science, technology, engineering, math, and medicine. She also held a council membership for the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. She is also the founder of Indus Space Inc., providing STEAM-themed learning content and resources for educators and learners with a specialization in space exploration. All in all, it was my immense pleasure to have her here with us, and here is our conversation.
So, what actually got you started with this particular field?
So I would say back when I was a child.
yeah.
It starts with that. So I believe, and this is, to your audience not knowing the age range, I lived in a time when we used to, process film and take photos. So I remember my mom telling me that apparently the guy processing would always be like, why are there photos of blue? And the blue was just the sky.
Okay.
So supposedly as a child, I used to always just get her to click photos of the sky. So I guess I had sort of some curiosity about it. And I went through, you learn whatever subjects you do as a child. But I remember just before I moved to Canada, I used to live in the Middle East. And so in that, there happened to be a comet that was passing, and there was a news article about it. And it was like this comet, Hale-Bopp, I feel.
Wait a minute. Let me tell you a story. It was a peaceful neighborhood, but behind the walls of this mansion lay a shocking discovery. Police entered to find 39 individuals lying peacefully in matching dark clothes and Nike sneakers. No signs of blood or trauma, just an eerie calm. The victims were the members of the Heaven's Gate cult, a group led by Marshall Applewhite, who believed that the suicide would propel them into an alien spacecraft following the Hale-Bopp comet. The chilling details reveal the extent of their convictions. On the night Hale-Bopp passed closest to Earth in March 1997, Applewhite and 38 followers consumed a lethal mixture of phenobarbital and vodka. In their minds, this act would free them from the earthly body called containers and usher them into the awaited alien spacecraft. The aftermath left a somber scene in Rancho Santa Fe and raised questions about the power and belief and the consequences of extreme ideologies.
There was a news article about it. And it was like this comet, Hale-Bopp, I feel like that was the one. And it's coming. And for those who are interested, and it was like little, small write-up. And it was like, whoever's interested, meet us at this location. And so my mom and I saw it and we're like, whoa, what is this? And so I have to say, parents were always supportive of my curiosity. And so we went and we saw it, and it was very distinct. I was like a tween, I think, at that point. And so it was like distinctive that I could remember seeing the comet. It was so dark. Everything else was really hard to see. And so that is probably how it got started. But then after moving here in high school, there is something that high school students have to do is gain volunteer experience or as a co-op. So it was volunteer for me, and I think it was like 55 hours, just whatever it is you want to do. And again, this is pre-internet, pre-Google, all of that. And so we relied on the phone book and came across some astronomy clubs. I mean, it is an organization, but it was like, oh, let's try that. And it so happened the president at the time was in Mississauga too. And so we reached out and he was like, you can help with memberships. And back then, again, memberships was you fold the paper, put it in the envelope and mail it out.
Right.
So I helped out with that. But in that experience, I got to see my first lunar eclipse. So all of those, I think, just started to build up. And close to like graduation, I kind of knew it was like physics, astronomy that I was interested in. And I applied for that. And that's where the journey really probably started. But it was high school that really kicked it off.
You said that you were in Middle East. Like, how many countries you've been? Because I see that you studied in US, you studied in Canada. And
so that's it. So Middle East, US, Canada, and of course, from being from India, there's
so you
that
studied
little...
in 4 different countries.
I never studied in India. I
you did
studied
not.
in Middle East and then moved here. Once I finished undergrad, I moved briefly for masters and then I came back to Canada for PhD. So 3 countries.
3 countries.
Yeah.
Do you find that there is difference in the kind of education you had in all these places?
So, I mean, I think for any of us who have gone, like as much as I lived in Middle East, it was Indian central board system.
Okay.
So I had the feel for that. And certainly I think, I mean, I think in that CBSE until like 9th.
Okay.
Pretty much. There was a bit of a sort of transition, certainly when I was entering 9th, but we moved here. So it was, so I would say, I feel like I've learned the best from both.
Okay.
I don't know that one is better than the other.
Right.
I feel like Indian system to me was a lot of discipline and a lot of like structure very early on. But on this end, to me, it was more of the sort of practical experience of whatever you learned in theory. There were opportunities, projects, etc., that were getting you to really think about using it. And that I can't say that I got it in the Indian system, but I would, again, not hold that as fault. So I feel like I got best of both. And yeah.
Even when I did international business here, that was the first time I'm studying something here. So when I just came here, I was like, theoretically, in BCom, we had to like 40 page. We had to mug up what the author has told us.
Right.
And whatever he says is the truth. And over here, it's like, if you write, that's a plagiarism. I was like, okay, this is actually good for me because practically I'm trying to understand how to start a business. But then also I was thinking, in your field, science, did you have to discover, invent, or did you have to study about something? But like, how does it actually work?
So with science, yes, you're learning theory, but and certainly in like undergrad and all, you're learning the basics. You can think of them as like the building blocks of whatever the subject matter is. But as you sort of move further along, like in undergrad even, but by 3rd or 4th year, you're kind of merging what you learn into, again, opportunities like research opportunities, etc. They have that as a credit or, an opportunity, like a course that you can take to do research.
Right.
So that is, again, building blocks of how to become a science communicator, how to make sure that, what you're having some critical thinking. You're not just mugging it up. You're kind of having to think about whether that helps you with whatever your question is or not. And certainly by master's into PhD, the independence is a lot more. No one is holding your hand to show you how things work.
Exactly.
And you are sort of learning that, and it's not smooth sailing. You're going to have moments of like, what is this? Am I really cut out for this? So those doubts will always come. But by the end of PhD, I remember my own committee in many ways reminded me that now you're the expert on this very particular topic.
Right.
Even my own advisors were not experts. They helped me to a point, but the actual, figuring out, asking those questions, doing your sort of analysis, etc., that's you. So you can, celebrate that part of you are, on the grand scheme of things, you're adding one more jigsaw puzzle piece to the whole topic, right? So these are all like the sort of lessons you learn in retrospect. It's not easy to kind of understand that as you go through it. But at the end, you are kind of becoming an expert through all of these experiences and opportunities.
When usually students think of, okay, I'm going to take science as a subject, most of them become engineers and doctors, but it's very few. Like, you are the first person who is in space I met. What are the fields that actually students can take now? Like, what would you recommend them other than these two?
I think this is where I love sharing that if you look at space, it's all things STEAM. So science, tech, engineering, art, and math. Because yes, you have the core subjects of science. You have the engineering to figure out the innovation side of it. But then you have the tech. Again, what is going to be easiest and most meaningful to add as a tech thing so that it does half the work, so that you as a human being can really use your resources wisely or well planned. Then there's the math, of course, you have to incorporate the math. But then even from an arts perspective, it could be creative design. It could be just, again, how do you communicate? For all the technicalities that exist, you will always need to help explain to someone, like the Aam Aadmi, to be like, this is why this matters. This is why, again, it's all taxpayer money to a point, right? So if they would they need justification on why it is being used. And I think this is where I would say choose the field that you really enjoy.
Right.
And there is guaranteed to be some part that is applicable in a space environment. So you get, I guess, trained on the core topics, whatever they may be. And then you look for opportunities to then apply it in a space sector, where it could be through, again, if you're in school, research opportunities. Now I feel like, back when I was in school, these weren't many opportunities available. It was strictly research. But now we have student competitions. Like, the space agencies are supporting undergrad teams to go from building to actually launching. And so those sort of opportunities or trying to participate in them will definitely open the door on what is possible. And so it's a combination of, yes, training in it officially, but also applying it while you're figuring out, okay, how best. And then I would say those doors open quite easily.
When you were a student, did you see a lot of people with color in your classroom? So you must be
I was probably the only one. Forget person of color, but also woman of color.
Right? Wow.
So it was and I think this is where what I now do for Indus Space is quite influenced by that experience. I wouldn't say it was bad experience.
Right.
Everyone was welcoming. Right. Everyone was sort of, including me in things, etc. But in retrospect, I can also see there were moments where I had to be either, am I in this mode or in this mode? Am I am I very Bhairavi Shankar, the person from India, immigrant, etc.? Or am I just Bhairavi Shankar, I'm geology in training kind of thing. And there were few opportunities to combine the two and openly celebrating.
Were there diversions or like distractions for you? Like, let me just go party. Why am I even studying? I have like
I
friends-
was not the partying
You were
type.
not
I'm
the
not at all. Even now,
I sensed.
I'm very comfortable at home.
Oh, yeah.
But no, I think again, this is where those interactions, meeting others, we were like a. So as much as I can say I was Canadian, moving to the States, I was still considered international.
Right.
Again, in my program, if I was the only person of color and the
Right.
woman of color in my own group, they were welcoming to a point, but because of being an international student, I was part of the international student community,
Right.
whatever that was.
Right.
And that's where for me, who has never lived in India, that was the first experience of me meeting other Indians.
Oh. Okay.
I mean,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
we had
yeah.
friends over here, not like that. But again, the opportunity to observe, yes, students are all
Closely,
coming
yeah.
with the intention of like studying, etc. So, I mean, I think those were like, interesting. And then, of course, we bonded. Those of us who, really had common stuff in interests, we bonded. I loved to travel. So if there was anything happening where we were taking a road trip or anything, I was like, done, I'm coming.
Right.
Because that was of interest for me, right? But I think I won't say that I was definitely wanting to like break the rules or whatever, but whatever felt comfortable.
Curious about that. How did she manage not to have distractions all the way? So I'm gonna definitely write this question because I don't want to forget this.
You should ask about how like the university life was and all, here, all the parties and stuff.
I don't think so. She would have partied, but then we can ask her. How did she manage? Okay, yeah. So I was there. How did she manage not to get distracted? Okay, yeah, really, dude.
Yeah.
See, just while we are talking, I get distracted. Like if you're talking about something, no, my
You know what's,
focus. I'm not having ADHD and all. Okay,
ADHD, I'm
don't
not
go
going
to
to say
say that. Okay, no. But then yeah, it's because I'm like a creative mind. So I have so many things coming in my mind. Like, oh, how the world would be like if all this kind of thing. So